Tonight, breaking news on two major fronts. Massacre on campus, a mass shooting at an Oregon college. Police rushing to the scene, engaging the gunman in a shootout. The death toll in double digits. Many others injured. Tonight, we're live from the scene with all the latest in this still developing tragedy. And epic storms. Joaquin now strengthened to an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. A race to protect the shoreline as states of emergency are declared up and down the East Coast, where a deadly second storm is already battering areas with rainfall and flooding of potentially historic proportions. Nightly News begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. What a day it has been. We prepared to begin here tonight with news of an explosive Category 4 hurricane churning in the Atlantic and another massive storm already flooding much of the east. We've got all of it covered, but we will, of course, start with more breaking news of that mass shooting. Another shooting in America, another community shattered, and more young lives senselessly taken. It happened on the campus of a small community college in Roseburg, Oregon. A lone shooter opening fire, killing and injuring so many before being confronted and taken down by police. This evening, a visibly emotional, angry, and frustrated President Obama echoed the nation's sorrow.
Somehow this has become routine. The reporting is routine. My response here at this podium ends up being routine. The conversation in the aftermath of it, we've become numb to this. We talked about this after Columbine and Blacksburg, after Tucson, after Newtown, after Aurora, after Charleston. It cannot be this easy for somebody who wants to inflict harm on other people to get his or her hands on a gun.
President Obama this evening. We begin our coverage with NBC's Gotti Schwartz.
Somebody is outside one of the doors, shooting through the door. There is a
morning classes interrupted by gunfire as students found themselves trapped with a gunman terrorizing campus.
We do have one female that has been shot at this time.
Police scanners show the first calls came in around 10:38 a.m.
Bay City has dispatched as many ambulances as possible to this incident. We have upwards of 20 victims.
The rampage at Umpqua Community College lasting about 10 minutes until police finally made contact.
Changing shots with him. He's in a classroom. The suspect is down.
Officers engaged that suspect. There was an exchange of gunfire. The shooter threat was neutralized.
More than 20 victims and at least 13 dead, as well as the 20-year-old shooter. On campus, students posting about the chaos. One writing, "Students are running everywhere. Holy God." Another, "I feel so sick, I can't stop shaking. This is unreal." Over the phone, witnesses describe what they saw.
I just heard multiple gunshots and people screaming, "He's shooting, get out of there."
This afternoon, Oregon's Governor Kate Brown says their priority is the victims.
It is still too early to know all of the facts. I know I am joined by my fellow Oregonians and Americans in profound dismay and heartbreak at this tragedy at Umpqua Community College.
For hours after the mass shooting, local, state, and federal investigators worked to clear the campus.
Certainly this is a huge shock to the entire community to have this level of crime and incident occur in our college or school system.
Police searching cars and interviewing students, checking bags before everyone was bused to safety. And in this small community, this college massacre felt deeply by everyone, from first responders.
Well, it's absolutely devastating. My granddaughter attends there, and by the grace of God, she was homesick today.
To reporters covering the tragedy.
This is the largest massacre in Oregon state history, and it's just awful.
Clearly an emotional day for everyone involved. At this point, all we have is the shooter is a 20-year-old male. He has not been identified. School is closed until Monday as this investigation continues. Lester?
Gotti Schwartz in our Los Angeles newsroom. Thank you. And our colleague Jacob Subaroff of MSNBC has reached the scene in Roseburg. Jacob, what are you seeing and hearing there?
Good evening, Lester. I'm about as close as anybody is going to get to Umpqua Community College right now. It's at the intersection of Umpqua College Road and Highway 99 here in Douglas County. Umpqua Community College is about a mile up the road from here, and the only people that are coming in and out of what would otherwise be a very beautiful community is law enforcement, and they have started to let a couple of residents through. I spoke to a State Trooper Bainbridge here, and I asked him if he had ever seen anything like this in his life. He said not to this extent. The FBI, the Douglas County Sheriff, ATF, and many other law enforcement agencies are here, Lester, and it's only a matter of time before we see what happens a mile up the road.
Jacob Suberoff in Oregon tonight, thank you. And sadly, campus shootings in America have become all too common. According to the group Every Town for Gun Safety, there have been 142 incidents in which a gun was fired on a school campus in this country since the massacre in Newtown in December of 2012. And this is the fourth shooting on a college campus just since the start of this school year in August. We get details from our justice correspondent, Pete Williams.
The scene unfolding in Oregon has become all too familiar. Another mass shooting, again on a school campus. It's actually the 41st school shooting just this year, with gunfire on campuses nationwide in big cities and, like today, small communities. Until today, those shootings had claimed the lives of 9 people. As before, calls for more gun control or better mental health outreach, calls that so far have brought only minor changes.
We're going to line up on 2 different sides, on gun control and on mental health, and we're going to wind up wringing our hands one more time while we bury our dead.
One thing that has changed is the nature of the police response, now much more active instead of waiting for heavily armed SWAT teams to arrive. Police in Roseburg say they developed plans on how to respond to shooting scenes after a high school shooting 9 years ago. The community college made its own plan in response. The FBI will soon distribute this movie-style video to the nation's police with lessons learned from other mass shootings on how to direct what is typically a massive law enforcement response. To minimize the danger, evacuate or lock down potential victims, and keep ambulances and other resources moving to help those injured. President Obama's comments tonight reflect his frustration with the issue of gun control, but his administration has yet to come up with an idea that's acceptable to Congress. The shooting may also cause some states to revisit the controversial issue of guns on campus. In Oregon, for example, students with the proper permits are allowed to carry concealed weapons. Lester?
Pete Williams tonight, thank you. Another major story we're covering right now, a massive hurricane churning in the Atlantic. Joaquin is now an extremely dangerous Category 4. The sheer size of this system can be seen from space as it lashes the Bahamas with brutal winds and storm surge. And whether it makes landfall in the U.S. or turns out to sea, it will wreak havoc up and down the eastern seaboard, potentially historic flooding. Right now, there is a state of emergency in at least 5 states, and this storm will hit on top of another storm already dumping torrential rain, triggering flash floods from north to south. In a moment, we'll get the latest forecast from Al Roker, but first to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez in North Carolina's Outer Banks as the East Coast prepares. Gabe?
Lester, good evening. Nearly all of North Carolina is under a flood watch. The surf is picking up here, so is the wind. And this is an area that is used to big storms, but this could be a 1-2 punch. An already drenched East Coast now bracing for historic rain and wind that will drag on for days. Parts of South Carolina slammed with 5 inches of rain, the fast rising water flooding roads and submerging cars. 1 person killed, another rescued when this road washed away, causing a massive sinkhole. All this because of something called a Rex block, a weather pattern with a high pressure front above a low pressure front, virtually locking it in place, dumping large amounts of rain near the low pressure. In this case, heavy downpours will begin in the Carolinas and parts of the mid-Atlantic tonight and last for at least 3 days. The heavy surf already eroding beaches is expected to bring fierce rip currents and extreme rain.
I cannot stress enough that we are talking about the real possibility of deadly flooding.
This afternoon, about 1,000 visitors were evacuated from an island on the Outer Banks. All this erosion happened within the past week or so?
The loss of the dune happened within the last 2 weeks.
Kitty Hawk Mayor Gary Perry is used to big storms, but he's preparing for the worst.
We're just doing the best we can to manage and get ready for it, and then we'll deal with the aftermath.
North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and New Jersey, all under a state of emergency. Much of the East Coast bracing for 2 rounds of torrential rain, even if Joaquin doesn't make landfall as a hurricane. The National Guard here is on alert, and local emergency management officials here in North Carolina plan to meet tomorrow morning to decide whether to issue more mandatory evacuations. Lester.
Gabe Gutierrez tonight, thank you. And to the north of there, in areas devastated by Superstorm Sandy 3 years ago and still recovering, they're taking no chances tonight as they brace for high water. In parts of the Jersey Shore, the flooding has already started, and that's where we find NBC's Ron Allen.
Good evening, Lester. You're looking at miles and miles of defense and preparation. This is a huge sand berm, some 10 to 12 feet tall. It's taken several days to build, here to protect these towns along the Jersey Shore from any storm surge. Towns devastated by Sandy 3 years ago that this time around are not taking any chances. That is surplus military equipment bought since Superstorm Sandy, creating a huge barrier of protection just in case, stretching for miles along the Jersey Shore. How high is that berm going to be over there?
We're going to build them anywhere from 8 to 10 feet high.
The devastation caused by Sandy remains fresh in many minds here 3 years later. The homes damaged or destroyed, the boardwalks torn up, the intense flooding.
Everybody's scared because you just don't know. And I said, if we don't get ready, it's going to hit us hard again.
Now they're preparing for the worst. Governor Christie declaring a state of emergency.
There will be people who, when they start to hear this news, will feel an enormous amount of stress.
In Belmar, they've also pumped much of the water out of the biggest lake in town, creating a place for floodwaters to go. They've reinforced and built a new boardwalk. The supports dug 25 feet deep. 10-year-old Hannah Doherty raised $5,000 selling colored seashells to help her town rebuild. She thinks they're ready. Are you prepared yourself?
I think we are. Yes. I think Belmar as a town is prepared.
Here in Jersey, they're expecting several days of heavy rain and coastal flooding, even before any impact from the hurricane may be felt. A 1-2 punch that they hope they're ready for. Lester?
Ron Allen tonight. Al Roker at the weather map. Al, what are you seeing right now?
Well, the good news is, Lester, we see a storm that looks like it's going to be moving more out to sea. Currently, as you mentioned, a dangerous Category 4 storm, 70 miles south of San Salvador, Bahamas, 130-mile-per-hour winds. It's still moving slowly southwest at 6 miles per hour. But if you notice the path, it has slowly been drifting east with each successive run. And when you put into effect, you look at the American model and the European model, those are even further east. And now the National Hurricane Center model is coming into agreement with that. So when we look at the timeline, Friday, major hurricane still Category 4. The rain increases over the mid-Atlantic states. Dangerous surf along the southeastern coast. Saturday, torrential rain in the mid-Atlantic states, southeast, beach erosion, Cape Cod to Myrtle Beach, and coastal flooding expected. Sunday morning, major flooding across the southeast with that rainfall anywhere 10 to 20 inches of rain in 3 days. Coastal wind gusts of 55 miles per hour. Power outages, flooding a problem. Then Sunday evening, the Hurricane Center remains offshore. Strong winds from Maine to the Carolinas still. Dangerous surf for coastal areas. And Monday, rain ends in the mid-Atlantic states. High surf, rip currents for the mid-Atlantic states, Lester. So even though no landfall, still we have to worry about its major effects.
All right, Al Roker, thanks very much. Much more still ahead tonight. Our NBC News investigation. Cities and towns left hanging by the feds who refuse to answer our questions about potential health risks from artificial turf. Parents taking matters into their own hands to protect their kids.
Okay, there's the ball. You got the ball.
Tonight, more of our investigation into the most common artificial turf that millions of American kids play on, made of ground-up tires. Last night, we told you about parents' fears it might possibly cause cancer, and the federal government's failure to give any kind of guidance on whether this turf is dangerous or safe. It's leaving it up to local communities to decide. The result is confusion, concern, and we met a family who is pulling their kids out of sports altogether. Stephanie Gosk has our report.
Go to the goal.
John and Laura Dam pulled their boys from local sports. They would rather their kids not play at all than play on turf made with ground-up car and truck tires. Fairfax County, just outside of Washington, D.C., has more than 80 crumb rubber fields. This is some of the only public grass.
Right now, what we're saying is our kids are the guinea pigs, and they're the ones that are going to tell if it's safe or not, and we're not willing to let our kids be those guinea pigs.
Last year, the Dams watched our report on turf and heard soccer coach Amy Griffin ask the question, is crumb rubber turf causing cancer? The coach started keeping track of goalkeepers with cancer. Her list grew from 34 to 63 after our story aired. There are no scientific studies linking turf and cancer, but players and their families still worry those tiny black dots may be to blame. Crumb rubber is made with the same chemicals found in tires, some known carcinogens.
We have a tire dump for our kids to play on.
The Dams started a petition to ban crumb rubber. 2,000 parents signed, but local leaders rejected the proposal after their extensive review of peer-reviewed studies concluded that these fields do not pose a serious public health concern. Just on the other side of the Potomac River, a quick ferry ride away, is Montgomery County, also a D.C. suburb, basically the same demographic, with quite a few concerned parents, but their solution is completely different. This is a turf field made not with tires, but with cork and coconut husks. On average, $40,000 more expensive than crumb rubber. Montgomery County is using this alternative from now on.
Our residents let us know this made them nervous. And so we took it seriously, and we don't want our parents nervous if we can avoid that.
Since our story aired last year, at least 50 cities and towns in 17 states have been debating whether to tear up crumb rubber fields or install new ones. The EPA says this is a state and local decision, leaving officials on their own to sift through dozens of studies.
How is Montgomery County going to assess the scientific data? We look to the federal government to give us guidance. In the absence of that, all we know is it's created a lot of anxiety.
The EPA and the Consumer Product Safety Commission won't say crumb rubber is safe or dangerous, and both refused multiple requests for interviews. We tracked down the EPA administrator. Is crumb rubber turf safe for our children to play on?
I'm sorry, I have nothing to say right now.
The result of the federal government's silence is a patchwork of local decisions, which the Dams say is not the way to resolve an issue that affects children's health.
The sad thing is people think, and this is often what I hear, it's like someone's looking out for us, right? They're putting them in all over the place, so it must be okay. And the reality is no one really is.
We called the federal agencies again today. The CPSC told us that it is limited in what it can do without more money and legal authority from Congress. The EPA, which we've asked more than 10 times for an interview, says it is assisting a study in California. The agency still will not answer this question, Lester. If more research is needed, why are children still playing on crumb rubber turf?
People just want answers.
Absolutely.
Stephanie, thanks very much. We're back in a moment with some of the day's other news making headlines. Russia carried out more airstrikes in Syria today, even releasing video showing Russian fighter jets bombing targets on the ground. Moscow says it's attacking terrorists, including ISIS, but most of the targets are believed to be in territory held by U.S.-backed rebels, including some trained by the CIA who oppose Russia's ally, Syrian President Assad. There were also reports of civilian casualties, quickly denied by Russian President Vladimir Putin. An awe-inspiring sight in Mexico, a time-lapse capturing the explosive eruption of the Colima volcano, a huge blast of lava, ash, and smoke. There have been a number of eruptions in recent days, the volcano at times blowing columns of ash more than a mile into the sky. If you take too much luggage onto an Amtrak train, be ready to pay for it. Today, Amtrak began charging $20 to passengers who don't follow bag restrictions. It's a tactic that has generated billions for the airline industry, but Amtrak's rules are a lot more generous, allowing 2 personal items up to 25 pounds and 2 carry-ons up to 50 pounds. And a happy 91st birthday to former President Jimmy Carter, having a private celebration with his family in Georgia. The former president continues to remain active as he undergoes cancer treatment. The birthday celebration will continue into the weekend. When we come back, more on our top stories, the massacre at an Oregon campus and that massive hurricane, Joaquin. Before we go tonight, an update on our top stories. First, the mass shooting on a community college campus in Roseburg, Oregon. Officials say at least 13 are dead and more than 20 injured. The shooter, a 20-year-old male, is also dead. He was killed in a confrontation with police. He has yet to be identified. Also, we continue to monitor that massive Category 4 hurricane churning in the Atlantic. It's part of a 1-2 punch that could trigger catastrophic flooding on the eastern seaboard. We'll be updating the latest forecast throughout the evening on NBCnews.com and, of course, tomorrow morning on Today. That's going to do it for us on this busy Thursday night. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching and good night.